enjoyed it both times for what it's worth.
Absolutely.
Better that time.
I have the 101. Let's get this draft going, Mike.
We're full already. Okay, let's get going now. Let me
We were
just
full
get it
before
on.
you went on assignment.
Okay, I got to share my screen. I'm behind you guys. I'm sorry that Bigz started the show.
Maybe if we had a producer.
Yeah, man, come on. What's that about?
All right, Zach. Tell us about yourself, my friend.
Hey, I'm Zach. Go find me on the Twitter at Schultzy. My tag's right there. I'm a diehard Jags fan. And I love fantasy. And I'm excited to be joining with you guys. Other than that, I don't think I got much more.
So Zach, Joe, did they talk about
what's your username on Underdog? Or excuse me, on Sleeper. Who are you?
Oh, I'm Schultzy there in the 12 spot.
Oh, okay. Fantastic.
So Joe, I assume the guys went through your spiel. Did you tell everybody where they can find you and all your stuff?
Sure. No. They can find me at Dynasty_JoeFF on Twitter. All my work over at the Undroppables. And right now, it's just rookie draft season. So I'm focused primarily on that. I'm tweeting about it. I've got a thread that I'm putting out where I'm kind of walking folks through my thought process. And so hopefully that'll be helpful.
Yeah. And like we've got a lot going on here at the Undroppables, as you know. We have the UN score that just got dropped last week, and it's got such a comprehensive rookie guide on all the rookie wide receivers. It goes back all the way to 2018. It's got such a component to fantasy football that everybody needs to get. And if you don't have part of it, you should definitely get in on it. Now it's my pick. I'm at the 3 spot, and there's a Jaden Daniels still on the board, and I just been going to go with my guy, Malik Neighbors, and I'm picking a wide receiver in this spot because I just like the upside there. I just think the longevity could be there. There's some question marks regarding Jaden Daniels and, his size and his lack of sliding. So I'm going to go ahead and play the safer spot there. What would you do in that situation there, Joe, in the 3 spot? Are you a guy that's going to take a quarterback, or is it just depending on what your roster build is?
It depends, but I have positioned myself in as many places as possible to come away with at least one of these top 3 wide receivers. And so I've gotten 3 neighbor shares out of my 6 rookie drafts thus far. So I'm really into him. I've got 2 Odunzes and I've got 1 Marv. I'm trying to get them. They feel like safer bets to me than the quarterbacks not named Caleb. So I'm going that direction as often as possible, unless, I have a dire need at quarterback. But even then, I would probably try and trade back and acquire a quarterback, an established one, and maybe try and grab some picks because I'm really risk averse in super flex drafts. I want to make sure I've got a quarterback I can rely on weekly. So in most positions, I go for upside, but when we're talking about quarterback, I want to make sure the floor is there.
Agreed. And that's the big decision marker right now when you're in a position there, especially in the top 5 or 6 picks. If you're not, desperate for a quarterback, there's a lot of value in those picks to be trading out of, especially if you're okay with taking one of the 3 guys. You could move back and potentially hit a gold mine with moving back there. So I like where your head is at there, Joe. And I'm in the same boat. I'm more of a wide receiver guy, someone that's going to take the standard, the floor there, and the longevity, especially with how elite these 3 wide receivers are.
Totally.
Vlad McConkey going. Yo,
yeah, Mike, until we get Schultzy completely on board, go ahead and mute that sleeper draft.
Oh, good idea.
So real quick, I chose the 109 because I figured it'd be the most interesting slot in the draft, assuming we'd go chalk. But of course, Ladd McConkey went at 108, taking away my difficult decision to make it 109. So I went ahead and took Bowers, but usually I've seen Bowers going in that top 8, and then the 109 is really a critical point where you got to decide what you're going to do next.
So
And
we
for the
got
record,
a mover. Sorry, I gotta jump in here because we had Schultzy talk to take Trey Benson at the 112, and that's the earliest I've ever seen him go in a rookie draft so far. Do you want to just elaborate a little bit on that, Schultzy, and why you think Trey Benson is going to be such an asset and why you would invest a first round pick on him?
So I kind of adopted the strategy here. I picked the 12, and if I'm the 12, I just won the title. So, I'm kind of adopting the strategy that like my team's ready to go. Like we're here to run it back. The plan was Jonathan Brooks. I wasn't expecting to get sniped there. So I went for Benson. I think there's 2 backs in this class who have the clearest path to legit workhorse work. And I mean, volume's king for running back. And then Benson's got the traits and the athleticism to match. I think it's a pretty home run spot for him. I know James Conner's going to do James Conner things again this year, even though people probably think he won't. But yeah, he'll probably get hurt too. And so, yeah, I really like Trey Benson. But like I said, I was planning on Brooks, but I still like Benson more than the crop of receivers here.
Interesting.
Can't argue with that logic. I like that.
No, the logic is sound. I don't know if I agree with it, but it makes sense. Lad McConkey would not last past the 8 if I'm picking that high. I've been taking him everywhere that I can. I love him. I love me some him. But yeah, I love the logic on Trey Benson. I just I'm not really in the mood to prognosticate on James Conner getting hurt, even though it's probably likely. Mm-hmm. If I was in the 12, I would have gone with Blake Corum, even though he's also behind. Like that's the thing about this draft is that there weren't a lot of guys. It was a very deep draft of guys who can earn jobs later. So essentially, what you're doing is this draft is just 4 rounds of team building for the future. There's not really a lot of help for right now if you got some of those later picks. So with that said, preferred player, I like Corum, you like Benson. I mean, that's the way to go. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that pick, and I wasn't trying to say that.
Well, for me in that spot there, sorry, yeah, was that you, Joe, that was going in there, or Zach?
Oh yeah, I'm on the clock right now, but go ahead.
No, tell us about your pick here because I'm interested to see where you're at here.
Well, I mean, to me, this is the dream scenario. Another reason I picked this draft slot is because it sets me up perfectly to get my guy, Roman Wilson, who I've been ranting and raving about to anybody who will listen. He's super underrated. I love his landing spot. I think he's going to see the field right away as a slot player who can play a little bit inside. He's a great deep ball receiver, which is what Russell Wilson likes to do. So thrilled to get Roman Wilson on the second half of the second round in just about any draft, particularly if I need a wide receiver. He also happened to be the top player on my board right there.
Yeah, I love that. I love Roman Wilson. I love his landing spot. I think a lot of people had, compared him to Lad McConkey because they size up very similarly. They have a very similar profile. If you look back at college, they did match up very similarly. And I just really like that landing spot quite a bit. He's going to go in there and he's probably going to take a good chunk of those Deontay Johnson targets. And with a quarterback upgrade in Pittsburgh, he's a guy that he could potentially be a top 5 rookie wide receiver this year just based off of that landing spot and some of these other landing spots that aren't super great, like Roma Dunze. And Malik Neighbors could also not be a super big contributor this year if Daniel Jones doesn't pull up his socks or whatnot. So a lot could happen there, and I definitely I like that call there on Roman Wilson.
I just wanted to jump back real quick and address Schultzy. You sniped me for Ben Sinnott, so thank you for that. Appreciate you.
No problem.
So I just wanted to address real quick. You said that you didn't like any of the wide receivers that went in the second round. I really think that this third round is where the wide receiver class kind of like opens up like a blooming rose. Javon Baker, Malachi Corley, Jalen McMillan, and Jamar Burton. That is like the hardest choice for me to make between those four. But you're going to miss out on all of them. So what are you going to do at wide receiver? You went running back, then you went tight end. Are you imagining that you don't need wide receiver? That and let me just say that's a little bit different than we've all these mock drafts that we've done so far. Similar guests we've talked about. We don't know what our teams look like, so we're just drafting BPA. You have a little bit different tack, so that's why I was asking. But what are you going to do for wide receiver in this draft with such a huge class?
Well, yeah, since like I said, if I'm drafting 12 and like I think I'm on a championship team here, like wide receivers are probably loaded. Like that's that's your ticket. So I really love Sanaa as a prospect. You can get the landing spot with a rookie quarterback. Sky's the limit there. Hoping Jacob Cohen falls. Cohen, not sure which one it is, but that's where I'm looking for here. I do love this third round in general, though. Like you were talking about those wide receivers, what rookie draft gives you this number of third round rookie receivers that are going to step into that much opportunity?
Right.
And they're pushing all these guys out of lineups too. Like they're like these guys that were wide receiver threes are losing their jobs, right away. Like Zay Jones lost his job because these guys are coming in and filling those roles. And I just want to point out a couple guys we see in the sleeper app here. We've got who do we have here? We've
Grindberg.
We've
got Grindberg.
No, we got
real quick. I just accidentally made a mistake. I wasn't supposed to draft Luke McCaffrey there.
Okay.
I think I have auto pick on. That's all right. We'll let it slide. It's fine. He was. I didn't see Kamani Vidal went right before. I was freaking out a little bit. I'm good with the McCaffrey pick though. He's pretty close.
It's a good pick.
Was hoping Vidal fell to me. I've actually got Vidal. It's actually Vidal. I keep pronouncing it incorrectly because it's more fun. Ranked as a second round talent, like late second round. And so I've been consistently getting him in the third round. So I absolutely love that pick. Once Marshawn Lloyd's off the board or Jalen Wright, those top 5 running backs, I think it's, Vidal season or Vidal. But yeah, I'm thrilled with McCaffrey there too. So no complaints.
Yeah, agreed. That's a good one. We got to do.
All right, time for your shout outs.
Yeah, okay. We got Derek Fuchs from the Undroppables in here. We've got Too Much Brian, and we've got Tyler from Fantasy Football Advice Network. They're, Tyler's our guy there. So thanks for joining in on our draft. We also have Bradley from Fantasy Football Advice Network. So thanks everybody for joining our draft and coming in and hanging out with us tonight.
Yeah, and shout out to Grindberg, Schultzy, and Kuvt. You guys are in the draft too.
We are in the draft.
There you go, Schultz. You got cowing.
You got your cowing.
God damn it.
Yeah, so we were talking a little bit pre-show, and I think this is when he hit the record button on us in the middle of the conversation. I mean, compared to Pearsall, I could see him being more of an impactful player this year, assuming Debo and Ayuk are still around. Who knows? But if they're still there, Cowing kind of projects as a player who's going to stylistically fit better with those two, I think, than Pearsall.
I think he's gonna be doing a lot of slot work. I think he gets really good separation over the middle and underneath. The problem is, like, when he does face contact or when he is pressured, he has a hard time making contested catches. But fortunately, he's got 4.3 wheels. And he's very quick as well. So I think he's going to be a yak guy, and Shanahan's going to be scheming him open once it's time for him to see the field. I'm not sure if it's in 24 or if it's in 25. I think the thing I like about Pearsall is he can fill in for both Ayuk and Debo if either of them go down in different ways. He gets a lot of, in college, he got a lot of carries out of the backfield. So, there's that Debo element to his game. But he's also a real good route runner, similar to Ayuk. So I think they can use him in more ways. And I think he's like the direct backup for both of them, whereas Cowing is filling sort of a different role.
Right. Pearsall had an almost even mix of lining up outside and in the slot, and Cowing was mostly a slot receiver.
So I got some interesting things here. Like I'm not used to seeing so many running backs slide to the third round. You got Jalen Wright, Marshawn Lloyd, Vidal. I'm seeing them going in, late second round in a lot of my drafts. And just the way this draft has fallen, a lot of these wide receivers are kind of getting plucked up there. What are you guys' thoughts on that? Like with this running back slide, you got Jalen Wright, who I think is in a really good spot, and also Marshawn Lloyd long term. What are you guys' thoughts on those guys?
Yeah, I have not seen them in any real draft fall out of the second round. And I think that is correct. I think that they should be going in the second round, and they are sure bets to, deliver some value in 24 and beyond. Whereas, really once you get into the second and third round and fourth round, wide receivers, those are shakier bets. All a running back needs is opportunity. All these guys have the juice, right? They all have great speed scores. And so when they get their opportunity, I think they're going to produce. Whereas these wide receivers, they're going to have to consistently win and consistently earn targets. So for me, the way my rankings are set up, all those running backs are in the second round, including Kamani Vidal, as we already covered. So yeah, it'd be rare to actually see a board fall this way IRL, but good for anybody who can grab these guys in the third round and beyond.
Exactly. Like I'm baffled by that. Like seeing Jalen Wright go where he is, I just think that, Raheem Mostert being as aging as he is, and how, injury stricken Devontae Chan has been throughout his rookie season, I just think there's an opportunity that Jalen Wright could easily go in there and get an opportunity right away and steal a job and then just be the force for years to come. So he's a guy I'm going to have my eye on. If he slips to the third round, geez, Louise, that is something that I'd be all over for sure.
Yeah. So right here, I'm shocked that Audric Estime has fallen this far into the fourth round. I've got him as a third round running back. Now, his situation is terrible, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. Yeah. So I thought I was going to be landing Malik Washington here, who I also like quite a bit, but like I just said, eventually Audric Estime's number is going to be called. And I think once Javante's out of Denver, which, I still have hopes that's this offseason somehow. But even if it's not, I think next year we're going to see Estime on the field, and I think he's going to produce. So I'm
keep Javante there as long as possible. I would have taken Estime with the 4-1, except that I wanted to talk about Will Shipley.
Yeah. And I've got Will Shipley one spot ahead of Estime. So no arguments there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Will Shipley is another guy we got to talk about a little bit here because of how much he was getting steamed up before the draft. Kind of a guy that's been like pegged as a 3-down back, a guy that can go in and actually become a workhorse, and then getting that Philly draw just as disappointing for a lot of people. I like his overall long-term, outlook, because I think that Barkley is not going to be there long term, and Will Shipley has proven to be able to take on a 3-down workhorse role, and just his receiving upside is just on the next level. He's probably the best pass catching running back out of this whole class. So with that all being said, he's not in a great situation. So where do we see Shipley? And obviously a fourth round is not where I was seeing him getting drafted before the draft. Like he was going second round in a lot of places where I was seeing him to drop 2 rounds. Is that justified, or is that something that you're going to take advantage of in drafts if he's going to go in the fourth round?
Yeah, I mean, I have him firmly in the mid to late third round. So it's not shocking to see him fall to the fourth round. I mean, it's, kind of a bummer that he landed behind Saquon. And, part of the appeal with Will Shipley is also his passing game, acumen, right? But now he's paired with Jalen Hurts for, his rookie contract, who doesn't throw to running backs all that much. So we're losing some of the upside on the pass catching, but I still think that he's going to be good between the tackles and as a ball carrier. So he's another guy we just need to see the field, but I can see why he would fall because some of that perceived upside has been nullified due to landing spot.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into the breakdown before we get into our fallers, because we've got a couple fallers that we're going to have, after the draft, we each pegged a rookie that kind of fell down the board for us. And let's just talk about the draft. And maybe we'll start with you, Schultzy, and kind of go over your 4 guys. And we talked a little about your 1, 2, and 3, but talk a little bit more about Malik Washington in your number 4 spot and how you see the upside there in Miami and where you see his position in 2024.
Well, I got to say, I was really pulling for Garindo there, but, it's all good. Washington, I mean, I love, obviously, the landing spot. You get thrown into that offense. Like, how do you not like that? You're also now behind 2 receivers who have equally missed their, some time. And you've got some real talent into that wide receiver 3 spot in Miami for the first time since McDaniel's been there. They've been trying to trot out Braxton Berrios and Rivers Craycraft, something, like.
I was going to say, is that a Braxton Berrios slam? Come on.
Hey, he can slam me. I mean, I've seen those muscles, but I'm not trying to start a fight here. But hey, I think we've got some juice here at the the wide receiver 3 spot in Miami for the first time. So yeah, I'm gonna in late 4th round. I think that's an easy stab with some upside.
Yeah, I think he's
just to give you some context.
Yes, agreed.
Just to give you some context, in a startup I just did, I drafted where'd it go? I drafted Braxton Berrios with the 2-1. So
love it.
It's a kickoff returner league. So anyway. I love me some BB.
As far as Malik goes, I was really, really excited about him landing in Miami, thinking he's going to step right into that number 3 role. But then when they signed Odell Beckham, that kind of cast a little bit of a shadow. But, it's similar to what we were just talking about with Pearsall on the Niners, where I think Odell Beckham can be the direct backup to both Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. And that Malik is still better suited as the slot guy and the guy, the yak guy for that underneath stuff that I'm sure McDaniels is going to scheme up for him. So it might just be a buying opportunity. The doubt that the Odell Beckham signing has cast on him. He's a really fun player.
And that puts into context as a former Tyreek Hill owner. I have 0 shares now and 0 cares. There's one thing that we know about uber fast players. They are prone to ticky-tack injuries that are frustrating for fantasy owners. And so as a backup, Odell's going to be coming in for Tyreek Hill next time he has a little tear or a sprained ankle or something like that, something that pulls him out of a game. It's not necessarily going to affect Tyreek Hill over the course of the season. But yeah, Odell's going to be in position to be taking over, and they're still going to have an ability to put Malik Washington on the field and get the ball in his hands.
I think Odell is a way better real life football signing than it is a fantasy signing. Like what you just mentioned, like he is going to have such a huge impact on on a game day. But for fantasy, I'm not a huge fan, and give me Washington.
So, cream will rise.
Yeah. Okay, Joe, your go. Yeah. I love the Brock Bowers pick. He seems to be sliding a little bit into that spot where pre-draft he was going at the 107, 106. Now he's sliding to the 108, 109 spot. I've seen Xavier Worthy go ahead of Brock Bowers, which I think is just ludicrous in my opinion.
Blasphemy.
I do think that Brock Bowers is the end of that first. Like the end of that, tier with Roma Dunze and JJ McCarthy and Drake May, all those guys kind of fit into that tier. And I think that Brock Bowers at the end, and then Lad McConkey starts the next tier, in my opinion. What are your thoughts on that? Getting Brock Bowers at the 8th spot? I think that's a really good spot to get him.
Well, yeah, I got him at the 9 spot, and like I said,
Nine spot. Yeah,
I
sorry.
did not expect him to be there. I chose 109 intentionally because I thought it was going to be a harder decision. This was a real quick button push for me. So I understand. I think where the market is coming from a little bit. Devontae Adams is there, and he got 170 plus targets last year, and he's probably going to get that again. Jacoby Myers is there, and then they've also got Michael Mayer, who was also no slouch in college up until the existence of a Brock Bowers. He was the greatest tight end in college football history. So the presence of another tight end, the presence of another dominant alpha wide receiver, and probably questions about the quarterback play in Las Vegas is what is pushing him down a little bit. But I think that's Galaxy branding it. I mean, this is a generational talent at a position where all we care about is the super high producers, the people that have the most upside. And there's no denying it from his athletic ability, which is evident on tape, and his production profile that he is one of those guys and one of the best prospects we've ever seen. I tend to think they're going to figure out a way to get him volume, if not, a ton in his rookie year, certainly as his career goes on. So I have no hesitation whatsoever, but I think that's what the market thinks.
And if you want more Raiders talk, tune in on Thursday nights at 8 p.m. To the Undroppables channel on YouTube, where I host the Uncovered, the Raiders Unrivaled show. We go live. We're actually moving to Tuesdays in a couple weeks, and you can hear me and other hosts talk more about people like Brock Bowers, who ate my pizza. Sorry. Undroppables on YouTube.
Okay,
Fantastic
and then one
fun.
more pick here I want to hear a little bit more about is I know you were auto picked for Luke McCaffrey, Joe, but in that range, around the board there, would he be a guy you'd be picking in that range, or who would have been the guy that you would have been going for around that spot there?
Yeah, so actually, I freaked out for no reason because I had set him up in my queue right after Kamani Vidal, and I didn't realize that Vidal got drafted, and I accidentally had auto pick on because I let the clock run out on Roman Wilson. So he was next in my queue. That is who I would have picked, to be clear. The thing about McCaffrey that's so interesting to me is what do we always talk about with wide receivers? It's their breakout age. How early were they a producer? And what gets lost with McCaffrey to the novice or someone who's not looking that closely is that he didn't start playing wide receiver until his junior year, where he immediately started producing. And by his second year as a wide receiver, he was crushing it. So you kind of need to look at him in sort of a different light, like he was a producer as a freshman and then a mega producer as a sophomore. Because those are the 2 first years that he started playing wide receiver. So he has this actually early production profile, incomplete production profile, because he converted from quarterback to wide receiver. So not only that, but his athletic profile looked very good at the combine. He's fast. He's got everything else we're looking for. I think he's going to be a great slot player. And I think he's really undervalued right now. So I'm real comfortable with him in the 3rd round. I think he's a value, and I think he's probably going to end up out producing where he was drafted in the NFL draft and in our rookie drafts. That's yet to be seen, and obviously there's still some development left to go for someone who converted to wide receiver so late in their college career. But the upside seems higher than just about anybody else on the board right there.
Yeah, I concur with that one for sure. Now, Bigz, I'm looking at your draft, and I'm looking at it. I'm like, what the hell are you thinking? Caleb Williams, 101. Tell me about that pick.
I picked the 101 specifically because that's the only time I'm ever going to draft Caleb Williams, because he's constantly going at the 101, and I can only get him in mock drafts because I never have the 101. And so yeah, this was my only chance. When I get to choose the draft position, it's my only chance to draft Caleb. So that's what I did. I already explained my Will Shipley pick, Malachi Corley. I love the fact that he is vibing with Aaron Rodgers already, and even though Garrett Wilson is going to be the man in New York. I really love Malachi Corley's profile. Blake Corum, I think he's got a really quick path to starting. I think he can probably take over by the end of the summer. And if all things drop the way that they should, given his draft capital versus Kyron Williams. I do want to hand out the two draft MVPs. Obviously, none of us are eligible. And, we would all share the title because of our 4 perfect drafts. But the first one is going to go to Love Tractor 3, not just because of his name. I love the JJ McCarthy pick. I love the dichotomy of JJ McCarthy from his low volume Michigan roots going to Minnesota, where he's got all of these wide receiver options. Aaron Jones, who's a receiving running back in his best days, and just the idea of the Vikings slowing the game down with a heavy running attack is not in the cards, and they were willing to spend the capital to grab JJ McCarthy because the Vikings have confidence that he can be a high production quarterback in the NFL, and so do I. Troy Franklin, I love that pick. He's going to vibe with Bo Nix. They're going to spearhead the second coming of the Broncos Walmart era, which they're never going to win anything, especially in Las Vegas. I like Jatavion Sanders. I think he's going to do well to kind of help out Bryce Young. And, of course, Dylan Lobby. The jury's still out on his pronunciation. I think he has a chance, given his special teams ability, to get himself on the field as the Raiders' 3rd-round back before the end of the season. I love that as a 4th-round pick. That's brilliant. And then the other one I was looking at was FFDF with Jonathan Brooks. Obviously, he can take over from Chuba before the summer's over. I have a hard time with Jalen Polk and Jalen McMillan with the way that they're falling. I would flip them in terms of what I think long-term their profiles are going to portend as their careers go on in the NFL. I think Jalen McMillan is a better wide receiver than Jalen Polk. But for now, Jalen Polk has a better opportunity. And then I love Isaac Garendo in the 4th round. I think he is going to be Kyle Shanahan's heir apparent to Christian McCaffrey. And I think long-term that, especially from the 11 slot, that is a fantastic draft. So those are my 2 MVPs of the draft, FFDF and Tractor. What was it? Love Tractor 3.
Shout out to Derek Fuchs. That's FFDF, our buddy from the Undroppables.
Derek, you did it, and Love Tractor 3, you win the draft just for the name.
It's a great name.
All right, so now that we've recapped the draft, let's get into some fallers. We've each got a faller.
You get into some fallers.
Yeah, well, how about we go with our guest?
Okay.
Dynasty Joe. You've probably identified a faller in the range of these rookies, and who's a guy that you're kind of just like, I don't like very much after their landing spot?
Are we talking about as it pertains to this mock draft we just did?
No, just kind of like in general, who is
sure.
kind of like, who is your least favorite landing spot player, and how does it affect their team?
I've got lists from multiple positions, so you tell me where you want to start. I would say,
well, we've got Bigz and I have got our own wide receiver, so if you go anywhere else, that would be cool. So we don't overlap here.
All right. Well, I'll start at running back then. Will Shipley, we already talked about during the mock draft. Yeah. I'm very bummed because, I was on record before the NFL draft saying he was going to be my most owned running back. And that was after his pro day where he, ran a 4.39. Now, granted, you got to take pro days with a grain of salt. But that would have put his speed score over 110. And even if you adjust it by 0.05, like, you see a lot of reputable websites like Player Profiler do, he still would have been like at a 105 speed score, really good burst score. And so I was thrilled about him. Then he got stuck behind Saquon, who they just gave a big contract to. And like I said, having a quarterback that doesn't throw the ball to running backs all that often really takes away a lot of the upside in a profile like Will Shipley's. That being said, Eagles got themselves a heck of a running back, and I think when he gets his opportunity, he's going to find a way to shine. The other running back we already also talked about was Audric Estime. Was very bummed about his landing spot as well. This is another guy who shot up my rankings after his pro day because he had a subpar 40 time at the combine. He came in at a 4.71. Then in his pro day, he ran like a 4.59, if I'm not mistaken, which made all the difference in the world because he went from a sub 90 speed score, which is a huge red flag, to about a 95 speed score, which is totally fine. But now he's probably in the most crowded backfield in the NFL, right? They've got, they've got Javonte Williams, they've got Jaleel McLaughlin, they've got P. Ryan. And in addition to that, they also, these darn Broncos, went and picked up my favorite undrafted rookie free agent in Blake Watson, who was my sleeper running back. So now they've got, 5 running backs, 3 of which that I like, and, none of whom can actually give us the numbers we want to see in fantasy. So I'm really bummed, which is, as I was saying, why I want to see Javonte moved, just so that Estime and hopefully Blake Watson can get a little bit of run in Denver. I doubt that P. Ryan makes it through camp on this team. And I think Javante's got some trade value. So we'll see if like the Cowboys or anybody else is willing to step up and make a deal for him. I bet you he could be had for a song. If we're sticking with running backs, the other 2 obvious ones I think are Braylon Allen and Isaiah Davis. They both got the same landing spot, which is directly behind the arguably best top 3 running back in the NFL in Breece Hall, who is going to get a lot of volume. And they are basically just break glass in case of injury and emergency to Breece Hall. Now, what's interesting about Braylon Allen is there was some talk from Robert Saleh last year that really annoyed me, just talking about how Breece Hall needed to be more aggressive on his runs up the middle, which was just absurd because everyone's thinking, why are you, taking your Ferrari off-roading? Why are you running him up the middle? Get this guy in space. So there actually may be a role there for Braylon Allen to, be the meat shield for Breece Hall, which I'm totally fine with because that's exactly what he should be, is a 2-down grinder. And if that keeps Breece healthy and, gives him those higher value touches and a little bit less of the, meat and potato stuff at running back, I'm good with that. But there's no way both of these guys can succeed without, multiple injuries in that backfield. Not to mention they blew up one of my favorite backups in Izzy Abanikanda. So all of those running backs, I'm very sad for, and I think we're going to have to wait until 2025 or, the misfortune of some other players before we actually see them, fully shine.
That was a really, really great breakdown on the running backs. I really appreciate that. Our viewers definitely appreciate that because there's a lot of question marks there, and I think you hit the nail on the head in breaking all those guys down. So great job, Joe. Appreciate that.
Oh, well, thank you. I spend way too much time on this.
Well, no, it's important. It's exactly what we needed to hear. So, Bigz, why don't you run us down your faller there?
Let's go with Schultzy first.
Schultz, do you have any fallers that you saw?
Am I allowed to say Michael Penix, or is that just the low hanging fruit?
No, he's on my list too.
I mean, obviously, it just sucks all around there. I'm not touching him with a 10-foot pole in Dynasty. You're looking at 2 years to play, and then you typically need 2 years to evaluate a quarterback. So you're talking for the entirety of his rookie deal, essentially. Granted the 5th-year option, but just to find out whether you got a dude. And I just can't get there with that. And so, like I said, even if he, you're waiting all this time, and if he sucks, you're out 4 years rather than, these other rookies you're drafting like Bo Nix is in the same kind of draft area somehow. I don't, it blows me away. But with Nix, you're going to know, sooner than later, whether you got to move on, draft a new guy. But Penix, you're just stuck.
A lot of it has to do with how long in your league, what your league settings are for your taxi squad. If you have a 2-year taxi squad, draft Michael Penix, put him in your taxi squad, and just wait. But if it's any longer than that, he's kind of screwed. Sorry, Joe. Go ahead.
No, I was actually going to say the same thing. So it depends on what platform you're on and what the rules are, right? So like in FFPC leagues, right? Michael Penix is undraftable. It's just difficult because those are shorter benches. I think during the season you can hold 20. I should know this off the top of my head, but it's the off season. But I think you can hold 20 men on your roster. And so you just can't burn a roster spot like that on a guy like Michael Penix. Versus, if you were on Sleeper and there's a taxi squad and you got 28, 30-man rosters, then I have no problem burning, a back-end roster spot and bench spot on Michael Penix and just waiting for a guy who got top 10 draft capital. I mean, this is what we want at the quarterback position. So you got to take the swing if you can afford the opportunity cost of holding and sitting on him for a couple of years. So to me, it's league format and league rules and, most importantly, bench spot allocation dependent.
Yeah, I think there's a very small portion of teams who are in the position to taxi squad a second rounder, though, like for that long. But I think if I had another one, and I'm a Jags fan, I'm going Brian Thomas. Sorry. Obviously the offense was clicking last year before Trevor's injuries piled up. Trevor was playing lights out. And I expect the same player, if not more, this year, which you would think, hey, first round receiver plus this young, good quarterback, like I'm all in. But one, there's mouths to feed there. You're looking at Thomas. Now they got Gabe Davis, Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram. There's just so much competition. I don't see Brian Thomas outputting the fantasy results that people want from that draft capital. A lot of times it's late first right now. And then on top of that, to me, he profiles way too similarly to Gabe Davis. The burner, deep threat. You can get him on those quick slants and get him running and stuff like that. Pretty deep average depth of target guy. So I was a little confused there. I think they're banking on this guy developing like a route tree and, really profiling as that true X guy. I don't see it. I love the speed. I love the intangibles. But like I said, to me, profiles like Gabe Davis, he's in an offense with a ton of mouths to feed. And I just don't see the X receiver ability like a Calvin Ridley was in that offense. And I think that's what they're hoping he develops to.
Yeah, I have a similar take on Brian Thomas, although I think they were misusing Calvin Ridley just solely on the perimeter and near the boundaries. And they had him running this very limited route tree, right?
Yes.
It kind of works for Brian Thomas because he does have a very limited route tree, right? He had, I think it was some insane number of his routes were 9 routes and, he runs curls and, slants basically, and outs, excuse me. So, but basically 3 routes made up 70% of his actual targets while he was in college. So for the Jags, I think it's a good fit, but for him, I do think that his upside is really capped in that role. You mentioned the same role competition with Gabe Davis, but also the target competition with Ingram and Kirk underneath. And I'm afraid that what both of them are going to be doing is clearing out space for Lawrence to work underneath with Kirk and Ingram.
Now, Lawrence has a beautiful deep ball. He's never had a player in the NFL to go with that. His rookie year, he was throwing deep balls to Laquan Treadwell. So I think, Thomas is going to have that, ability for him and it's going to be huge. But yeah, we never really saw Thomas get pressed in college that much. And a lot of times his comebacks, his slants, his curls were on 10 yards of soft coverage. So in my opinion, that reception perception tree is a little skewed.
Sure. Yeah. And I actually noticed the same thing. I sampled like 6 games for Brian Thomas, and one of my notes was that it looked like he did okay against press, but it was very rare that he was ever actually pressed. They were playing so far off of him that
Off of him. Yeah.
he could usually just find a little pocket if he wasn't going deep. But he did win deep a lot. So
And in college, you have to respect that speed.
Sure.
But that's not going to be the same in the NFL. So that's my biggest question mark with him.
Yeah, I think it's going to be low percentage opportunities.
Yeah, and he's going to be the number one target. Well, like hypothetically, in Jacksonville, and Malik Neighbors is the number one target earner in LSU. So like he was getting a lot of the double coverages, and when Brian Thomas now is going to be the guy that people are going to be targeting, how is he going to respond to that? Getting that extra guy, and at an NFL level too. I'm just not sold on Brian Thomas based off of some of the metrics that I grade things on, and I'm right there with you guys on him. And some people think that that's a really good landing spot for Brian Thomas. It's not the most ideal for me.
Yeah,
he's way down my board, and just looking at the unscore real quick, his model comps: Charlie Jones, Quentin Johnston, Sky Moore, Jalen Polk, Xavier Hutchinson, Cortland Sutton, Danny Gray, John Mechie. So Cortland Sutton is his ceiling. And who of those other guys are you going to draft where you're drafting Brian Thomas Jr.?
No way.
Yeah, you get on Jag's Twitter and everybody's pumped, and then there's me who's just I was drafting on it draft night and
wet blanket Schultzy.
I'm just not there with it. I went into it with round 1 as a Jags fan, like I don't want Brian Thomas.
Yeah.
Now the helmet scout in me is saying, well, you used to have Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase in the same wide receiver room. Now you've got yeah.
I will say, just quick clarification, Big. So as far as the UN score is concerned, that is for players who scored similarly. I wouldn't say that any of those guys are really like a player comp for Brian Thomas. I think his upside, I think his upside is like a DK Metcalf, who also, scored similarly in the UN score, right? So
I wasn't trying to imply.
Yeah.
I wasn't trying to imply that they were similar receivers.
I just wanted to clear it up for the listeners that, it's not a player comp. It is a score comp.
Right.
That's an important distinction. But and DK actually scored lower than Brian Thomas did in the UN score. So I think that is sort of like the high-end profile of what he can become. And that's another guy who's made it work in the NFL as an alpha wide receiver on, really 3 routes, certainly to start his career. He's developed a little bit more since then. And so I think we're going to see something similar from Brian Thomas, but hopefully it's the same production.
Oh, I think
hopefully for Jags fans.
Yeah, I think the DK model is the reason that teams saw a path for him.
Yeah, agreed. So, Biggs, do you want to hit up yours, or are you ready for yours?
My big faller is a situational guy. We have a mantra in Dynasty, and it's talent over situation. And sometimes you just kind of have to make a decision based on the situation, which is why I've been drafting a lot of Lad McConkey over my faller, Rome Odumsday. Rome Odumsday, I just don't like the fact that he's in such you talk about a lot of mouths to feed. You've got DJ Moore, who's an established wide receiver 1. You got Keenan Allen, who's an established wide receiver 1 working out of the slot. They're going to be lining up Odunze in the Z spot. But then you have Cole Kmet. You have Gerald Everett, who's going to be spelling Cole Kmet. You've got Roshan Johnson, Khalil Herbert, and DeAndre Swift, who are all pass-catching running backs or capable of being pass-catching running backs. And then you have them with a rookie quarterback who, as much steam as Caleb Williams has, and the fact that he's 101 in the NFL draft and in fantasy rookie drafts, etc., he's still a rookie quarterback. And an offensive line that not only wasn't great in front of Justin Fields, but also lost Cody Whitehair, who, if he was still there, would improve the Bears line a little bit. Not that he's good. He's going to be a backup on the Raiders, but he's not there anymore either. So they drafted a punter. I love the offensive weapons in Chicago. I just don't have a whole lot of faith that it's going to be as productive in year one as we think. I think there's a much better structure and success path for Ladd McConkey, and him developing a relationship that's very special and unique with Justin Herbert versus Odunze in, a pond with so many fishes.
I'm glad you brought this up because you mentioned taking Ladd over Odunze on Twitter, and I commented and said, "Remind me to yell at you." So here I am.
Here we go.
James, what are you doing, dude? What are you doing?
I love Ladd McConkey.
I love Ladd too. I love Ladd. I call him Nightcrawler. I think he's a really unique player, and I think he's got as golden of opportunity as there is in this draft class. But from a profile standpoint, we can't just look at year one and be worried about target share. We got to be drafting the alphas. And as much as I love Ladd, he is a slot flanker, right? That's his upside. He is never going to be a dominant X. And Odunze can play everywhere, and he can be a dominant X playing with what we think is a phenom at quarterback. So, Keenan Allen's already 33 years old. Like, you just can't let
California Golden Bears legend Keenan Allen.
Yes, I love me some Keenan Allen, but I just can't. I can't co-sign on that one. You got to take Odunze over Ladd.
The only counter I have for that is the fact that he's such a zone beater, and he's going to demand targets. He's going to be open all the time for Justin Herbert.
I think so too.
The way that Keenan Allen worked out of the slot a lot. I think there's a good analogy there. And Keenan Allen was open a lot. I can picture a universe in which Ladd McConkey is getting over 120 targets a season. And the way that he yaks and what he does with the ball in his hands, he's the kind of wide receiver that can survive with a low ADOT because he's going to be earning the production that he gets. And I love that profile, especially in the Chargers offense. Jim Harbaugh wants to play close to the line of scrimmage. And I think Ladd McConkey is the perfect wide receiver in that offense, especially with Justin Herbert and him getting the ball to him. I love it.
Yeah. And I don't actually have any concerns about his ADOT. I think that he's, Jim Harbaugh just had another great slot receiver in Michigan in Roman Wilson, whose ADOT was very healthy. It was north of 10 yards. It was between 10 and 14 yards, just like Ladd. So they're actually both in very healthy ADOT territory. I don't think it's going to be like a really close to the line of scrimmage type of thing. And I do agree with you. He's going to get a lot of yak. I just think that, Arome Odunze is a guy that's an alpha profile. In any other year, he'd be the wide receiver one off the board.
Yeah.
Sure. The target competition is a real thing. And if you're playing just for 2024, I agree with you. I think Ladd probably will have a better rookie season than Rome. I just think from a career trajectory wise, I don't know. I'm excited about Rome, and I love them both.
And that's a theme that has come up on this show over this show, other shows, other Dynasty stuff that Mike and I do. There's nothing wrong with a strategy where you are looking to win now and not like you're not kicking the can down the road. You're concentrating on right now. So if it's a startup, drafting old guys in a Dynasty startup, it's kind of a similar bend. And I don't want to wait.
Fair.
Not when I have Ladd McConkey at home.
I think the biggest thing for Rome is Keenan Allen's only under contract through this year. And I believe they have a potential out on DJ Moore if they choose after the season as well. And even then, he would only be under contract one more year after. So, yeah, I mean, the room does clear up for the future, but for this year, I do 100% agree it's Ladd.
Yeah. Like next year, I think Rome is going to be the guy, and him paired up with Caleb Williams is going to be something special for years to come. But 2024, I'm definitely like everybody says, I'm a big Ladd McConkey, investor, and I think he's going to have a great 2024 and beyond. So, I'm going to wrap the show up with my last faller, and that is a guy that I wasn't very high on going into the draft, and I'm definitely not as high on him now, and that is Colts wide receiver Adonai Mitchell. Drafting Adonai Mitchell, with the 20th pick in the second round was not great news when you consider, everybody was pegging him. A lot of people were pegging him as a first round draft capital. He had 55 catches for 845 yards and 11 touchdowns in 14 games for the Longhorns. He did play beside Xavier Worthy and was drafted almost a full round later. So when you think about that, he wasn't commanding a whole lot of targets in that offense. And, there was some issues about him taking the odd play off. More than the odd play, in my opinion. And when you look at his tape, he was taking a lot of plays off. And that just doesn't translate well when you think about the situation he was put in the Indianapolis Colts. They got a very good possession receiver in Michael Pittman, and then a great slot guy in Josh Downs. And I just don't see there being a huge target share for a guy like Adonai Mitchell, who, yes, he's a deep threat and a guy that, Anthony Richardson is going to target, but you're going to have to peg those big play games. And I'm just not convinced I'm going to be able to do that with this team. And, they're a run heavy team with, Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor. So those are the guys that are going to get the steam early. And I just don't like the landing spot. I don't like the draft capital. And I just don't think that Anthony Richardson is going to be airing it out a whole lot in his first year with Adonai Mitchell. I just think that offense is going to take the slow route and try and win some games here early. And I just don't think they're going to need to air the ball out as much as some people think. And some people love that landing spot. Me, on the other hand, I'm definitely not a guy that's in on Adonai Mitchell this year.
He's also got to jump Alec Pierce on the depth chart. And the only way he's going to do that is either to outburn him on go routes or play special teams. And I don't think he's built for special teams.
Yeah, I think he's a better real life addition. I think he's going to serve a very important purpose for that offense. But I mean, if you go back and look at it, the entirety of his college career, his time at Georgia and Texas, over his career, his yards per route run, 1.68. Anything below 2 yards per route run is a big red flag. I mean, already once you're below 2 yards per route run, I mean, you are less than a 40% chance of being a hit at the NFL level. His yards per team pass attempt at 1.02 over the course of his career. So even on and these are for, for the all the team pass attempts, not just route run numbers. It's a shockingly low number. His first downs per route run, 8.97. That's probably a little bit of a red flag. Usually below 8's a red flag, so that's not as concerning of a number, but this is the other one. The targets per route run, he's under 20% at 19%. 20 sprints. 20 is the threshold that we want to see. So I think we're going to see a lot of the same in the NFL as we did in college. Now, in college, he did put some great stuff on tape, right? He was very good at stacking defenders. He did have great body control, and sometimes he would run these very nasty routes. But with the presence of Michael Pittman and Downs, I think those two are going to be absorbing most of the limited targets we're going to see in Indianapolis. So I'm 100%
and Jelani Woods.
Yeah, Angelani Woods. Yeah, exactly. I have one more wide receiver. I know you said we were going out on that one, but I got to get off. All right, Keon Coleman. I'm terrified.
Juicy. Me too.
I am terrified. The fit
bonus take.
Yeah, the fit on Buffalo is really, really strange. They've already come out and said in the first presser that he's going to be playing X for them, which is concerning because he profiles as a big slot. Yeah. I was saying that before the draft. Matt Harmon was saying that before the draft. Not to compare myself to him. He's the receiver expert, but it was just really obvious to anybody who had ever watched him play. Struggle with separation, particularly against man. You put him alone on an island against NFL corners. They pressing him. I don't think he's going to be getting the separation needed. He was very good at contested catch situations, but that was out of necessity because he can't get separation. So, he was good at beating zone, which is why he profiles as a big slot. The problem is they've got Dalton Kincaid. He's, effectively a big slot. They picked up Curtis Samuel, who plays a lot of slot. They've got Khalil Shakir, who profiles as a slot player. So I think what's ultimately going to end up happening here is Curtis Samuel is going to have to become their outside guy and their deep threat. And I'm really worried that they've got all this redundant players who get open in a redundant place for them on the field. Yeah. I'm actually worried for Buffalo at large with this selection and their offense because I think it's going to be clunky. It reminds me kind of like what Carolina was doing in the Cam Newton days, where they just got these big guys and just asking, Cam to throw it there. So I don't know. It's a big red flag for me. I could be wrong. He could do great. Maybe Josh Allen is that good, but I am terrified. His draft capital forced me to rank him sort of the way that I did. But I think it's going to be ugly, and there's going to be some growing pains in Buffalo unless Josh Allen is that good and Keon Coleman shows us something we haven't seen yet.
To me, I think they needed to put Josh Allen around some people that actually separate from the ball, not guys that are all the same, archetyped. They need guys that can you imagine, the draft capital was there. They could have slid back and drafted a guy like Ladd McConkey who can freaking separate, or Xavier Worthy, who they let slide to the Chiefs. And I get why they did it, but these are guys that Josh Allen needs. He doesn't need a guy that could just go up and catch the ball. He doesn't need that now. He needs guys that can, create space in those, short intermediate routes. And I think you hit the head on the nail there. Keon Coleman is a big red flag for me. I was really, they had him pegged as a guy that they wanted pre-draft, and I get why. But when you're going to play him outside of where he thrives in the slot, it just doesn't make any sense to me. And
a lot of the rationale was like Josh Allen wanted him. It's like, okay, that's great, and you want to make your quarterback happy and everything, but did any of the scouts kind of think through how this was going to work for their offense? And listen, I am no scout. I could be wrong. Coleman may be capable of way more than I believe possible, but I am proceeding with a lot of caution.
Well, here
Aaron Rodgers wanted Randall Cobb too, so
exactly.
Here's something that we'll leave you with so that you can think on. What if Keon Coleman was just bad because of Jordan Travis?
No,
I mean, my concern is he was worse than Johnny Wilson, who went in the 6th round.
Yeah,
sure.
But he was also better than Jaden Reed in their time together at Michigan State. So I don't know. That's why there's just he's such a confusing prospect. I really wish he landed somewhere else, though, where he could play a more natural role, because I think they're trying to square peg round hole this thing.
Yeah,
that sounds a lot like Quentin Johnston and Treylon Burks and a lot of other guys that we've seen go that way, and just broke our hearts. Woo pig suey.
Yeah, we get older, we get wiser.
Yeah. Well, that was a great show, Joe. We really appreciate you coming on and hanging out with us. Schultzy, thanks for your first show, your inaugural show with us, and we appreciate that. Bigz, bring us home, my buddy.
All right. You can find me at BigBonedFFB on Twitter, Grindberg at FFCanuck99, Joe Kuvetakis, Dynasty _Joe FF, Zach Schultz at SCHU1 TZY. He's our new producer. We've got a lot coming at you. Big announcements coming up, probably next week. Rhymes with Atreon. And we will be doing mock drafts throughout the summer. We hope that you can join us for those. Like, subscribe, share, hit the bell, comment, give us some feedback. And as always, we hope you win.
We hope you win. Peace
Producer.
out, everybody.
Thanks for having me, guys. We hope you win.
Yeah.